Hey everybody, it's Jamie from the Marine Doctors YouTube channel, and today we've got another live stream. I'm just trying to get some stuff set up here so that I've got things open that I need open. So what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to tell some stories, as always. I'm hoping to, have some people ask me questions and so on and so forth, kind of along the same lines of what we did last week. I thought that was actually quite a bit of fun. I'm going to give you guys the answer of why that engine failed. I had some really good guesses, and we'll go through some of the guesses first before I get to the actual answer of why that engine failed. And I'm going to start things off with kind of a funny story that I heard. It's not my story. It was relayed to me by a customer a couple years back, and it had to do with a broken ignition switch and how this ignition switch broke and what went along with this story that I was told about these two guys that rode on the water together. Anyway, this guy shows up at the shop and he's got a broken ignition switch, and it was one of those things where it was don't ask how this happened. But later on, after probably a week or so of before we actually got it fixed, he'd settled down enough and he was willing to tell us the story, which actually turned out to be really funny. So this fella, he was one of those people that tried to help kids. He'd help down and out kids or whatever. He was in these programs where they would help kids. And he took this young boy out. Maybe not young boy, probably mid-teens, late teens, whatever. Anyway, and the guy had they're out on the water. And the kid stood up and swung the chair around, and he snapped the ignition switch or the key off. So they end up making it back to shore, and he tells the guy who'd been drinking all day in the boat because, I guess he had some. He drank. He drank lots. This young guy did. Anyway, the guy runs up the hill. He goes to get to the truck, and by the time he gets his truck and trailer, he comes back down, and the boat is gone. It's literally gone. And he's like, well, where is it? And he walks down to the dock there, and he looks out to the right, and he looks out to the left. Sure enough, it's way down. It floated away. And he says to the guy, I thought I told you to watch the boat, he says. He says, yeah, but then I had to go to the bathroom, so I hopped off to go take a leak by the tree. And then when he took the leak by the tree, the boat floated away. So, in any event, they managed to get the boat back and got it down to the shop, and I fixed the ignition switch. I think my boy actually at that time just picked what was left of the key out so that they were able to get back out later on that year and still have some fun. I don't know if he ever took that guy out again, but who knows? Who knows? Sometimes we set ourselves up for failure. Sometimes. So, we had some videos go through this week. Where did we start here? The diagnosis starts with the service writer. I think I might have done that last week, but I didn't. I don't think I talked about it last week. I thought that was a really good idea. Although what did the video do? The video did okay, I guess. But the reason that I put that out was sometimes we'll get customers, they come in and they tell us not enough information. So for those of you that haven't seen it, I'm just going to quickly go over what the video was about. If you choose to watch it, fantastic. If not, that's perfectly fine. But when you go and you take your boat in, you want to give the service writer or the tech or whoever you're talking to the most information that you can pertinent to the situation, right? So you want to give them all the symptoms that were there so that, number one, it doesn't cost you as much money because they know the direction they need to go. And number two, it just makes it easier for us in the back when we have a little short paragraph that says, okay, this is what I was doing, this is when it happens. For an example would be, I can't get my engine to start cold, but once it's warmed up, it starts perfectly fine, right? It gives us an avenue of, okay, we'll check compression, we'll check spark, we'll go over the starting instructions with the customer and make sure that those are taken care of and it's being done in a positive or the right way. And that reminds me, I think what I'm going to do is create a video on how to start an outboard motor, because I do get that question asked an awful lot. Also, to jump ahead, I'm going to be doing a starter rebuild. Now, keep in mind, I am not a professional expert starter rebuilder. This is just how I was taught, and I'll have a story as I'm telling it because I actually learned how to do that from my father. So there's some history there. What else do I got coming? I've got my 90 and 115 that I purchased off Facebook Marketplace. That I don't know the shape of them. I do know they need to rebuild or be rebuilt. That's all I know. So I could have sleeves I need to replace or whatever. I'm hoping I don't because I bought this as on spec to make some money off of them. So crossing my fingers, but we're gonna find that out too. That's coming up. Oh well, Chris had a Yamaha 55 horsepower 1993. I think this engine was nicknamed the Hammerhead. Very reliable engine. Are you familiar with this engine? I'm more so familiar, Chris, with the Mariner version of the Yamaha engines in the mid to higher sizes. I do work tons on 15s though. I know a 15 isn't obviously the 55. But I remember talking to the guys that owned the Yamaha / Mariner engines way back when, and they said those things were dang near bulletproof. They never had issues at camps and whatnot, and they were fantastic engines. So I would assume that that particular engine that you're talking about is the mold was never broken. They just kept going with what worked. Yep. Yeah. Back to the diagnosis thing. Yeah, if I can get as much information as I can from the customer, it's much more efficient and it goes a lot quicker, and that person is back out on the water that much sooner. Certified marine technician. Okay, so I have my papers, I get my papers, but the world has gotten to the point where everybody and anybody can become a technician of some kind and tout that as a badge of honor. So what I was trying to relay in that video is the fact that it's technician and certified technician and qualified technician is open up to everybody, and it doesn't hold up the way it used to. It doesn't have that standard that it used to, where you knew that person that you were talking to knew some stuff. That's what I was trying to get at with that video. I had to be honest, the outboard was worn out. So that was a Suzuki 55 or 65. I still didn't go back and read the number on it. I just know it ended with a 5. And that engine that engine wasn't too bad, but it had some quirky issues that I didn't want to address or couldn't address. And it kind of passes us along to the next video that I'm going to talk about. But he brought in a Mariner 60 horsepower Mariner that was older yet, and he was paying, what the heck was he paying? $1,200, $1,500, something like that. Just too much money, and it was going to cost far too much money to get it ready for the water. So I had to tell him that, at some point you got to pull the pin, because you just can't keep spending money on something. If he would have got it for free, it would have been different, but he was paying good money for it to begin with. Chris is asking, where do you take a sick boat? Oh, can I take a stab at the marine doctor? Hopefully that's the answer. If not, let us know. The dock. Oh my goodness, you got me. The dock, the DOC, not the DOCK. Very good, very good. I was hoping it was going to be me though, Chris. I was trying. Let's see, today's video. I had to pass on a job and the other guys dropped the ball. So there was one in particular that I do talk about, and I know I talk about 2 different engines in that, but one engine I sent to another dealership and they charged them $2,700, and the customer brought it back to me because he wanted the oil changed, and he also wanted me to run it on the dyno because they said they could only get it to 3,000 RPM, and I suggested that maybe there was still something wrong with that engine, so I was going to run it for him. When I put it on the dyno and I started it up, fuel started coming out of the vent, which meant that the VST wasn't sealing at the top. Now there's more to this story. The place that did the original work came and picked it up a couple days ago. I got a video today of the engine running from the owner of the boat with no fuel leaking in the places that they were looking. Now, in order for that fuel to come out of the VST must be full and or the engine running long enough to fill it, and it'll eventually just start pumping it out. So I don't know if they squeezed the primer bulb. If they would have squeezed the primer bulb and it was still an issue, fuel would have came out at the front of the engine. The video that I saw, they didn't even look where the fuel was supposed to be coming out. They probably just weren't even aware of it. I know that there are subtle differences between Yamaha and Mercury, even with the Mercaha, that they probably just don't have that vented line. And actually, I don't think they do, because I attempted to look it up on the internet so that I could send over a schematic and tell them, hey, look here, or give them the part number where they could look. But I ended up giving them the Mercury one, or the owner, I gave him a Mercury diagram and a part number and said, have them look for this and see if they can get it to fail. Ken says there's another ball game on. Oh my goodness, Ken. You just need to know the end to the ball game, and then you'll be fine. The other part to that video. Now, this fella, he shows up at the shop, and he's quite distraught. He's had his engine at a dealership since May. And they told him that it had 40 pounds compression on one cylinder. They had it all torn apart. The only way that he got it back was he finally just went there and said, hey, can I have my engine back? So it was all still in parts. They didn't work on it. They told him that it needed some pistons. It needed sleeves. They listed off enough items to equal over $10,000. They said minimum 10 grand to fix this guy's engine. So he actually had it in his truck when he was at the shop. So I said, do you mind if I take a look at it? And I want to see what they think $10,000 is. Excuse me. So I go out in the back of his truck and I take a look. I pull the power head back and I'm peeking inside and I'm looking going, all of these cylinders look like they need a 10,000 silver size. They don't need what this other place is saying it needs. I looked at the crank. The crank was fine. The pistons are fine. There was nothing that screamed it needed a sleeve, yet alone $10,000 worth of work. I think they just wanted to sell a guy an engine or didn't want to work on it. Now, it's upsetting to me because that's one of the places where I send people to get work done. So, it was kind of a double whammy here where I sent them to the one place that I send them to and I send them to the other place that I send them to, and I get stories coming back to me that were just horrible this past week. On the other hand, the guy that with the 175, I did sell him a 150 Mercury 4-stroke, so there we go, there's that. Chris says the Mercury $12 string that I rebuilt this winter managed to make it through the boat season, new rings, thermostat, and it seems happy. Oh, that's fantastic. Hey, Motorhead, welcome. Mariners just about wrapped this one. No, the Mariners are winning, Ken? Oh, that's terrible. Isn't it funny the way that works? They can just go back and forth. That's crazy. So the Mercury 1.2. What is the Mercury 1.2? Oh, the 125 that you're talking about, Chris. That's right. That's what that is. That you rebuilt this winter, managed to make it through the boat season. New rings, thermostat, and it seems happy. I won't do that at the shop though, Chris. I won't just do rings, and I'm very happy that it worked for you. But I'm going to tell you the reason why I don't do rings. I do pistons and rings, and I oversize the pistons or the cylinders. And the reason I do that is it gives the longest amount of life in a rebuild that you can possibly give. Now, hear me out. If we just clean up the cylinders, that means taking more material off of the walls. And if we stay with standard, let's say we've got a 5,000 worth of wear that's allowed. I know I'm sure it's different, but as an example, if you're already sitting at 2,000s and you take another 1,000s off when you clean up the cylinders, you're limiting the lifetime of that engine. It'll hopefully still last you your lifetime, but I can't take that risk, and I'd rather have that customer know that they're starting from square one and everything's going to be tickety-boo, so to speak. So what's Motorhead doing tonight? And Ken, are you going to stick around? So what else did I do? I did some shorts. How many shorts did I do? Slaying the Mercury 402s. So we were coming back from a road trip. I went on a road trip with my brother and my wife. We went to Broadview, Saskatchewan. That's where we went. We went to see Dad. That's Dad's resting place. And we had to put the grave marker in place. So outside of that, we were on our way home. And we passed a lake called Blackstrap. It's one of our local lakes that's fairly close. And we saw this boat with two 40 horsepower Mercuries on the back. And I just thought it was so unusual to see that I made the short. Yeah, it did pretty good. It did pretty good. I was quite surprised. But it was such an oddity to see someone with two 40 horsepower engines. Weirder yet, though, I remember seeing, and they called it the Ark. It was a great big wooden boat that they used at a Bible camp with twin 55 Chryslers. It was crazy. The cylinders looked perfect. Oh, so okay? No, that's fine then, Chris. As long as you didn't have to take any more material off, that's good. So the cylinders looked perfect, and the cross hatch was good. No, that's great. That's super. How come you were in there then? What were you doing? Let's see here. The deck plate or the subwoofer. So we couldn't even do anything with that boat. Once we opened up, or we did drill a hole because we were going to try and attach those rails that were on there. And I'm just assuming some of you guys have seen these videos. That's why I'm talking about the videos. You can always go and take a look at my shorts. It's called deck plate or subwoofer to fill a hole. Now, once we popped that hole out, and we didn't go through the center in the video where I showed we were going to put a subwoofer, we went underneath one of the pads, but when we drilled that out, it was all full of foam. So I couldn't even fix that. So we nicely put that piece back in place, and then we used large pieces of Velcro, sticky back Velcro, to hold those in place. We tried using silicone because we couldn't get screws or anything in there, guys. So there was no way to seal it outside of firing a screw directly through it, and that wouldn't have looked very good. So we used Velcro to hold it back in place. Oh, good news. The burnt boat, the one that had been sitting out front that I did quite a few shorts and I think I did a long video on, it's finally gone. I got of course there's a story. The insurance company called and they wanted us to submit another estimate on what the repair was going to be for installation of the engine on his new boat, putting the control box in, so on and so forth. And I realized at that point that I'd quoted the wrong control box. I needed a control box that had a wiring harness separate. So we took a couple of harnesses off of the bill, and then we put the real key harness on, which was like $440. And then we charged them some additional labor because we had to pull the engine off and then take the boat off the trailer. So I think we were like $600 more than the original estimate was. So we submit the estimate. The estimate comes back this morning, and there's some complaining because it didn't match the original one. So I wrote back. I told them exactly what I just told you guys, that the harness, etc., all these things, boats on the ground, and then to stop them from coming back and saying, well, we're going to deny this $600. I said, and I didn't charge you guys for leaving the boat in my driveway for 2 weeks and us having to move around and get around it and so on and so forth. So I kind of threw that in at the end, hoping that the $600 will go through. Now, what do we got here? What's the worst customer interaction you had to deal with in your career? Chris could write a book. And Ken, you're right. I could have charged them for storage. They actually wanted me to get a flat deck, haul the boat off and get rid of it myself, and then charge them. And I could just imagine how that would have went through. I guess I could have made more money, but still. So the worst customer interaction I had to deal with. I'm going to say it like this, Chris. Outside of that one video where I finally just told the guy to get out, I don't have a lot of issues with with customers. I seem to have that ability to calm them down, find common ground, build some kind of quick relationship with them, so that they're not mad. Like, you do get. Oh no, I do remember one. There was nothing I could do about this, and he actually gave us a bad Google review. Now, there was a time, a very short period of time, that we couldn't use the computers on the engines because they'd made this switch with the connectors. So our computers wouldn't talk to these engines because we hadn't yet ordered that connector. And this fella comes in, and his alarm was going off at high speed. In other words, I believe it was overheating, and then at idle, it would go away, right? So the boat sat at the shop for a while because I was waiting for this harness to come in, and then the guy finally comes in, and I tell him, I said, look, I can approach this the old-fashioned way without the computer and take your drive off, check your water pump, and change your thermostats, and I believe that you're going to be fine. The guy said, no, I want the computer readout on it. I want to know that's exactly what it is because I don't want to spend any money. Well, eventually the guy just finally comes and he picks up his boat because we couldn't get the harness in time, right? He wouldn't let me fix the boat. I knew what was wrong. He just wouldn't let me do it. So he takes the boat home, and then he writes his Google review and blatantly lies and says that stuff is missing from his boat, and the fact that I didn't know what I was doing and I wouldn't fix it for him. And get this, I was calling him to ask him what he thought was wrong with it, and then I would fix it. Can you believe that? It's still on Google. I've tried to get rid of it, and Google just says no. It's from a long time ago. And so yeah, if I had to say that there was no way that I could control that situation or in any way relate to that guy, that's the one. Yeah, I'll go with that one. Alan Wing, welcome, listening from Australia. How is Alan tonight? And thank you for stopping by. So yeah, Chris, that's that one. Now, what else do we got here? Winter storage, motor up or down, have fogged and stabilized. Ken, that it doesn't really matter because any water that might get into your gear case and expand isn't going to break anything. So if you feel like whatever the situation is, if you need extra room, put it down. If you don't need extra room, put it up. I've seen people tape them off and cover up the props so that water can't get in or moisture can't get in. But I'm going to tell you this, nothing's going to break. It's entirely up to you. It doesn't matter. I never get a chance to talk about very well, just enjoying a day off work. Oh, nice. Yeah, I get 2 of those back to back now on this weekend. I'm going golfing tomorrow. It's going to be the last time. I don't know if you guys know this, but I actually have a golf simulator in the showroom. So we don't sell boats anymore. We sell our loose engines. So I thought I like to golf. The boys like to golf, so we golf, and we golf indoors. So yeah, Ken, if you got it in the garage, then it 100% doesn't matter. If you need to put it down so you've got more room. The sticker was there for a reason. So unless you watched that entire video, so this was a short, 22 seconds long. Some people just don't have the ability to sit there for 22 seconds. I don't know, because some people didn't know what the sticker I was talking about, but you knew by the end. But on four-stroke engines, they put stickers on them so that you know how to lay them down on the floor, right? So if you can't read the sticker, oil's running into your intake and then possibly into your engine and ruining your weekend, or making a huge mess on my floor when you bring it in for me to take care of the issue. And that was part of the video. I had to stand this engine up so there was a trail of oil to follow, and then we finally got to where the engine was, and it was the oil that was coming out the bottom. So lo and behold, I had one of my another environmental company that I do work for. He dropped off his 2 engines, and he brings out the 21st, and I said, man, this was stored wrong. There's oil all over the side of it. So again, it's going to make a mess as soon as I stand it up and more cleaning. And then he says, yeah, but the other one should be fine. It's got this big sticker that's on it. He says, and then he looks down in his truck and he couldn't read it because it was upside down too. Man, I just don't understand it. Like, it's something as simple. It's a little blue tag that sits there and says this side up. Unless maybe when they're sold to them, these people just, it's not pointed out. I don't know. I don't know. Motorhead is Long Island, New York, and I think what Motorhead's been in the industry since mid-70s, I think. Saltwater use is what he does. What's the best beer to drink to make boat repairs go better? Chris, I'll be honest, I don't drink. I haven't drank since I was the latter half of 18. I got into bodybuilding at that time, and it just didn't suit what I wanted to do, or the feeling of being sick day after I would drink, because I did drink when I was 17 and part of 18, and I think I started when I was 16. I just didn't like the feeling. So this is Canada Dry. I don't know if the Americans have this or not, but it's a ginger ale product, and this is cranberry is what I'm drinking tonight. And I typically drink Perrier is what I typically drink. So yeah, that's me. If you want to know something that I do that's kind of quirky, so you're asking a question about what's the best beer to make the repair go better. When I'm stressed at work and doing rebuilds and stuff, and I'm constantly being pulled in all different directions, I put Air Supply on. It's, hey Google, play some Air Supply. And I sit there and just zone out of everything else, listen to Air Supply and paying close attention to make sure that I torque all the bolts, put the bearings in properly, the right sequence for putting all the bolts in, torquing them, all those things. It just lets me focus a lot better. So yeah, that's a quirky thing that I do to calm me down and make things go smoother for myself at work. I don't know if the boys actually appreciated when I put that on. It was probably just corny old geezer movie or geezer music to them. I don't know, but it was one thing that I did or do. Ken says Lucky Beer. Is there such a thing as Lucky Beer? I know that I've watched some streamers and they have a thing that they do called Step 2. So they'll talk for a bit and then they'll say, oh, I guess it's time for Step 2. Cheers, right? Except I do it with my pop or my water. Collective Soul, try it over Air Supply. Oh, no. Nope. No, I won't do that. I know that some people do appreciate Collective Soul, but that was alternative rock, and I'll be honest, I was big into metal when I was a kid. So you know, the long hair and everything, and some of my friends even had the poofy hair and stuff like that, and I had oh my goodness, what's it called? I had a version of all the business in the front, party in the back. Oh, what's that called? What's the hairstyle called? Never want to repeat it anymore. But my son cuts his hair like that now. Is it coming back? But mine was different. I didn't actually cut the sides. See, I cut the sides now because it's gray and I have none. So I just got to get mullet. That's it. Mullet. I bet if Ken put a picture up right now, he's got a mullet. Maybe. But yeah, I had a hair down to the middle of my back. I remember it was long enough that when I was at the gym, when I would go to get up off machines, it would get caught. Chris says, I was still into hair metal. Collective Soul is not grunge. It's not grunge? Oh, well, maybe I'll have a listen. Because I'll be honest, at that point, I made a complete switch over to country music. And what I find is weird, sometimes on my phone here, I get the top 30 songs from 1991, and it'll be pop music, right? And I'll look at it and not know any of it because it wasn't country at that time. I guess, you know, that I would have been that would have been in my early 20s. I think that's probably when most people up here in this area switch over to country for a few years. I think that's about it, yeah. Ken is shaved to number 1, a little light on the top. Oh, yeah. Do you do it yourself, Ken? I do my own hair. I guess every once in a while when the brother-in-law comes over, he was a hairdresser, so sometimes I let him cut my hair. But for the most part, it's just and it's done. It's quick, it's easy, and it's, well, it doesn't matter if it's free or not. I think I'd rather have someone else do it than I don't have to worry about a tag in the back that I miss. They came out during grunge. Hate grunge music. Yeah, I didn't like grunge. I didn't like it. No. I guess around that era, what there would have been. When did Bryan Adams? I was a big fan of Bryan Adams. Waking Up the Neighbors. I really liked that album. I played that tons. I think that was along the lines of when the Shania Twain at that time, I think, is what I was listening to as well. Oh yeah, so yeah. Ken cuts his own hair and his wife does the double check. Uh, I get that the little light thin ones down at the bottom, and I'll get my wife to cut those, and it always does this or does this or does this. So it looks like the emblem on Charlie Brown's shirt, and then I'll get to work. And my boy will say, "Oh, you let Mom cut your hair again, did you?" You just saw Bryan Adams in concert. Oh, so I saw him when he was here, and this was not long ago. Was it the one where they had the car that inflates and flies around? Was that the same concert? And Motorhead, yeah, he gets to use torches to take apart motors. I get to do that sometimes on gear cases, to take Mercury gear cases and Johnson gear cases, I guess, to pull the bearing carriers out. Outside of that, I guess maybe for doing bolts, and I think in one of my videos I show myself taking myself and I taking bolts out that way and then drilling them and so on and so forth. Bon Jovi, Keep the Faith. Bryan Adams is awesome. 18 Till I Die album. And the boxing glove. There was a boxing glove that flew around. We had an inflatable car at ours. This was this past. Was it this past year or last year? Maybe it was last year that I saw it. Anyway, it was a great concert because it was him and a band up there singing rock and roll. It was really cool. And what else? And then we saw the Beach Boys. Or the Beach Boy, because there was two left at that time, but only one was singing, and unfortunately another one passed away. But it was actually one of the guys that sang most of the song, so it was pretty cool to watch. And I think what was one of the coolest thing was to see the guy that sings falsetto when he would open it up and hit those high notes. I think that's just cool. If you guys ever get the chance, whether you're into this kind of thing or not, I watched on YouTube a couple years ago. I watched the Bee Gees, and you hear it, the sound, but it doesn't make sense to the eyes to hear those sounds coming from the men that are singing it. It's really cool. If you got a big stereo system and stuff like that, crank it up, sit back, and do some jive talking, guys. It's a slick concert to watch. A car and boxing glove. The Sheepdogs opened for Bryan Adams. When we saw Bryan Adams, there was no opening act. ABBA. So ABBA. We went to. We've seen all the movies. The ABBA. The musicals. We've seen all the ABBA musicals, and we actually went and watched ABBA. What were they called? ABBA. Anyway, they were a band. They were what is the word? The tribute band. We went and saw an ABBA tribute band here in Saskatoon at the Broadway Theater, and it was fantastic. It was great. It was, if ever get a chance to see them again, I would go. We also watched an Elvis tribute. That was fantastic. They set it up so the one guy did kind of the 50s and early 60s, and then the other guy came out and did the 60s and 70s, and the guy that came out did the 60s and 70s. Oh my God. It's like we just went way back in time. He looked like him, he moved like him, he sounded just like him. It was great. It was great. Neil Diamond. So I'll be honest, I do karaoke, and I used to sing karaoke and host karaoke, and I would sing some of the Neil Diamond stuff and get rave reviews. Well, don't we all when we talk about how well we do at karaoke? And what was the last concert we went to was, they were called, oh my god, I want to remember this because if you guys get a chance to see me, have to. Oh, no, I can't remember. If it comes to me, I'll shout it out. So if you hear me, just yell Icons of Rock. There it is. If you guys get the chance to see Icons of Rock, go and see those guys. It is a tremendous show. You've got the guitarist, the bassist, and the drummer. They stay on the stage the whole time, and they sub out the lead singers. So we got to see Ozzy Osbourne, Def Leppard, Kiss, Pat Benatar, Joan Jett. We got to see Stevie Nicks, and it was, what was it, 3 or 4 different people that were doing it. Poison, and what was the last? Did they say was it Poison? No, Autograph. It was oh my god! Like the place wasn't very busy. Wasn't like there wasn't a lot of people there. It's a small theater, and they would interact with everybody, and it was a tremendous show. You guys, Icons of Rock, 100% go and watch those guys. 100%. As for Bon Jovi, Keep the Faith, aware of the album. By that time, Bon Jovi had kind of worn off for me. The reason for this is we went and saw Bon Jovi live when he first came out, and he I guess they just got back from Edmonton, and he said Edmonton, we were better than Edmonton, so he compared us to Edmonton, and we're a small place, and there's no way we're as big and loud as Edmonton, so he's probably doing that at every place that he goes, and I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way. So Slippery When Wet, and what was after that one? Album that was after Slippery When Wet. Yell it out, guys. Yell it out, because you know it. Let's see. If I could boat anywhere in the world, where would I go? Hawaii, but I've already been to Hawaii. I'd probably have to say that I would want to go to Portugal because that's where my wife is originally from. So we would go back home, make a trip of it, and I know that they were out on the water there and they had a lot of fun. And she's also got relatives in Boston, so she's been out on the big water out there too, fishing and whatnot. So I still think, for my wife's sake, eventually I need to go to Portugal so that she's happy. I don't want to say too loud though. She's in the other room. She might start banging on the door and drag me out and tell me we have to go right now. Chris Rain, just saw Hairball last weekend. Motley Crue, Ozzy, Guns N' Roses, Alice Cooper, Queen, great show. The Hampton Beach Casino. Yeah, so agreed. Alice Cooper was also done at the one I was at. So yeah, I wonder if it's the same performers that join different groups, because I do know that the Icons of Rock is a very large franchise, so to speak, where they lend out their singers to go to different bands. And I know this because the one guy that was playing was actually supposed to be down in Las Vegas and playing, and he was actually up here in Canada, and he was doing, what did he do? He did Poison and, oh my goodness, I can't remember. Anyway, he was good. He did a really good job. All of them did a really good job. What's one thing viewers don't realize about making these videos? Let me explain the normal videos that I do, the ones where I'm walking around, guys. From my house to work is 5 to 7 minutes. And I'll come up with an idea as I leave the house as I'm driving. I'll kind of script it in my head. I get to work, I walk to the back, I start my phone up, I make the video. So I don't get a chance to put a lot of thought into it, and honestly, no, I should say I do put a lot of thought into it, but having ADHD, it's in and out so quick that I forget a lot of the stuff that I want. So my 8-minute videos could probably be 16-minute videos, but I just get I just get too far ahead of myself and I forget them. But yeah, that's how those videos come out or come across. The repair videos, that's all setting up cameras, and that's all, most times it's one take. is what it is, and then I edit all the videos and stuff myself, and then I put them up for you guys. Ken saw Kiss a few years ago, and what's the latest news on Kiss, guys? Ace Frehley passed away, so we'll never get a chance to see all of them together again. I managed to see Kiss 2 times, and for me it was really important to take my son so that he could see what what the big thing was. So unfortunately I didn't see Kiss in their prime because I was just too young. I would have been 6 years old going to something that I didn't know anything about other than they made noise. So I think I saw them on one of their Get Back Together tours, and it was all 4 of them that I did get to see. And my son didn't get to see all of them, but he got to see the show. And the show was, I think it was the same each time. I think it was the same. It was a lot of years apart, but it was the same show. Doc, come to Sunfest All Country for 4 days, July long, on Vancouver Island. Oh, Ken, let me tell you something about country music for this guy. If it's the new stuff, I won't listen. If it's from the 90s and older, yes. So let me know if at Sunfest it's a 90s theme and 70s and 80s, I would be all over it. Even some of the 60s, with the older singers, because I grew up with parents that listened to that stuff that actually used to sing it in the living room and record it on a reel-to-reel. I'd be all over that. But the new stuff, a lot of the new music I just can't get into. I'm at work, and I know I get complaints from the guys that are there that you play the same music day after day, and I just don't know. My Google Home does it. I don't. Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult here in New York City. We don't get any of that stuff here. We're pretty small. They've talked about building a new arena in hopes that we would get the larger people to come to the venue. But if Edmonton and Vancouver and Calgary and those places can't get the big guys, we would be wasting money building another place. We hold 13,000 people, I think, and for me, I think that's more than adequate, because the majority of the time our hockey teams play out of there, and they've get maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people. We've got lacrosse, indoor lacrosse. They play there. They get 3,000 or 4,000 people. So for the majority of the time, it sits empty. It would be a complete waste for us to spend millions of dollars for a new arena. Let's see. Motorhead, when I was a teen, I must have missed something. I didn't see something. What when you were a teen? And what tool brands everyone using now? So I use DeWalt is what I use. I was using Mastercraft for a while, which is Canadian Tire, but they didn't have enough of the types of tools that I need, and they weren't powerful enough for what I use. So I've got a skill saw, which I use to obviously cut things. I've got one of those vibrating saws that does I've got one of those. I have no idea what it's called. It's like a reciprocating saw, but it just goes back and forth, not like a Sawzall. And then 3/8 impact, 1/2 inch impact, nut driver style. So you put the little bits in, and what else? And drills. That's what I use is DeWalt for that stuff. Shania, I don't think I'd go across the street to watch a tournament. I was gonna say a concert of hers. My wife went, and she said it all sounded like it was right off the album. And we all know that Shania Twain's gotten to the age where she can't sing like the album, so it probably was the album. So no, I wouldn't go see Shania. Maybe, I don't even know if I would have gone to see her originally anyway, back in the 90s. I liked it, but not enough. All that music, so Shania Twain, Bryan Adams, who else can we lump into that? Maybe even a little bit of, I want to say, what was his name? Meatloaf, maybe? Fantastic. I love Meatloaf, but it all kind of sounds the same. I don't know. Same producer, I guess, or similar producers. I don't know. Let's see. Port Renfrew, BC is where Ken gets to go fishing, lives 45 minutes away. Yeah, that would be nice. I don't get the opportunity to go fishing all that much. Majority of my time is spent camping. Every weekend we go camping, and that's what we do. I still have access to the internet out there, so I can still. I think I even did a couple of videos out there, and I can answer questions and whatnot that I get asked, or I can still be contacted for work. So that's what I do. Motorhead has a mix of everything, so doesn't matter what brand you use. It's not that I'm proprietary to any brand. It's just that I've got the batteries already, so I may as well use that same tool. If I had Makita or Bosch or whatever sitting there, it would probably be perfectly fine. But it's just simpler to have all the same tool to walk over and go, I need a battery, and there it goes. And actually, I noticed today that I'm missing a battery, so I got to do some looking. Loverboy is still going strong from your area. So yeah, Loverboy is Mike Reno, and yeah, they're still doing well. If you guys could have got the opportunity, Streetheart would have been another band to watch. Unfortunately, Kenny Shields passed away a while back, but yeah, that was he was another good band. You know, kind of along the lines of the success that Loverboy was having. Avoid new tools off tool trucks. Yeah, I don't buy tools off trucks. I just go to Home Depot where my wife works, and I wait for something to go on sale, and I purchase it there. And I'll be honest, guys, when I need sockets, I'll go to a pawn shop if need be and buy sockets from there. I like to do Mastercraft or pick up Mastercraft when I am there so that they all match. It's just a thing that I like to do. I don't know, maybe I feel that they're going to get in a fight in the toolbox if I got the wrong ones. I don't know. I just like for them to match, so I try to get Mastercraft. And not once have I gone to a pawn shop and wrecked one and then taken it back to Canadian Tire to get it replaced. I won't do that. I'll just go to the pawn shop if I break one and get a new one. We use 6-point socket wrenches only because of corrosion. Yeah, I rarely will use a 12-point. Especially when you're using power tools, because the chance of stripping that the head of the bolt or the nut that you're trying to get off is significantly higher. So 99.9% of the time I'm using a 6-point unless I grab a 12-point by mistake, or that's all I can find. But I did spend this week cleaning. And funny story, my son, he's not at the shop anymore. He's off working in the mines, so I'm on my own. But I sent a message to him, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He says. I said, "Well, I'm arranging sockets, or no, putting socket. No, what the hell was it? I got to remember because then it makes more sense. I'm sorting sockets," I said to him, and he writes back a text that says, "At home?" I'm thinking, oh, he must think I meant socks. No, man, I'm at the shop doing sockets, I said. Yeah, it was funny. Yes, oscillating saw. That's the one that just moves back and forth. I picked up one of those from Home Depot. It was a super buy. I think I got a battery and a charger with it for a decent price. So, yeah, I got an oscillating saw. Believe it or not, I've used it inside boats to get zip ties. Can't reach the zip tie with the pliers, right, or the cutters, so I just shove that in there and go brap, and it cuts it. I like them. They're pretty slick. I've done bolts with them and stuff as well. Yeah, I like them. They have a mix last year. Sawyer Brown was the best. Oh, they're still around? I was wondering about those not long ago because someone had talked about, or I think I heard a Sawyer Brown song, and I'm like, wow, I haven't heard anything from those guys for a long time, but they're still touring? Interesting. Did my wife marry me because I'm a motorboater? No. No, I think she married me because she liked me. I think that's why. I hope so. Hope so. I guess let's do this. Let's ask chat. What's your dream boat setup? While you guys are typing that in, I have the opportunity to sell our 2008 15-foot Fisher with a 52 stroke on the back that I never use for almost what we paid for it years ago. So I won't lose a ton of money on it. I keep thinking to myself I should take it out and use it, but I'm just not a boat guy. But on the other side of the coin, my daughter's now at our campsite. They have a boat, which I have to repair the engine. I got to rebuild the engine. It'll be second time that I have to rebuild it. And hopefully we'll get on the water with them. So I'm thinking that I probably will sell Dad's boat. Motorhead's leaving. Laters. Thanks for stopping by, Motorhead. So dream boats. What's your dream boat setup? Do you own your dream boat setup already? Is there something else that you would want? Oh, and I should answer that question about why that engine failed. You guys are going to be surprised. I was, I didn't notice it right away. I looked for water intrusion. There was no signs of water intrusion. There's no real scoring in the cylinders. Nothing's gone through the engine. But this would be something that would be inevitable of happening, and I have seen it happen before. I just don't remember if it was for the same reason. So if I can pop it up here, where are we here? Where's my software? Video capture, left monitor. It's going to pop up the middle. There it is. So those are the bolts that hold those deflectors in. So what the deflectors do is they route the exhaust or streamline the exhaust or whatever the term is so that the engine can make better, more efficient horsepower. Anyway, these circlips that are here are to hold these bolts in place. So these lock down in a position on those blocks. And then you fold this little tab up and the tab holds that bolt from coming out. The starboard side has the tabs. The port side does not have them. So these little guys, these bolts, they vibrated out. So one was gone, two were still in place, I believe. These weren't there, so they vibrated out. And that's what happened with those exhaust deflectors. So what I need to do now is obviously replace that deflector. And I have to verify with the machine shop that they feel that it's still going to work, because it did damage the aluminum in behind where it's supposed to press up against, where it's supposed to meet. I don't think that it's that important, but I'm still going to have to ask them and see what they think, because I don't want to put that engine back together if it's going to cause problems. I do, though, have another engine out of 100 that I've got, and this is a 115, so I think I can still use the 100 block and just put deflectors in it and put the bubble back on with the 115 carbs, and it makes 115 horsepower. I hope. If not, I hope more so that the engine just works, because that other 100 that I have there, I'm going to build it on spec. So if someone comes in with a 90 or 100, I've got a block that's ready to go, and I can just slap it on and then rebuild theirs later on. That's the idea of that. Oh no, I lost all my stuff because I clicked. Okay, that's there. Still one more thing to pop up here. There we go. If you could redesign one part of an outboard, what would it be? If we talk about, you know what? Ideally, the biggest thing that I would want would be simplicity. The simplicity of the design to be able to work on them efficiently without having to take more stuff apart than we feel that we need to take apart or have to take apart. I'll give you an example. I was working on a 30 horsepower E-Tech, and some clown, that's the polite way that I'm talking about these people, clowns. decided to glue with aviation sealer or Permaseal. I think Permaseal? I think that's it. Anyway, the water tube into the water pump. So when we pulled the gear case off, it pulled the water pipe out of the top. So on the 30 horsepower E-Tech engine, it's actually can I get my finger? It's the can't bend that finger that way. Oh, we'll do it this way. It's a 90-degree elbow at the top, and it goes in sideways. It doesn't just go straight up. So what that meant was we had to pull the power head off in order to put the water pipe back in. Okay, so we took the power head off. We put that back in. We glued her back down so that it was nice and sealed up. And then we put the gear case back on. The next following Monday, that we did this on a Friday, the following Monday, the guy phones up, says, "Is my boat ready to go?" I says, "Well, I just want to run it, make sure it's going to pump water because we did this work on it." I threw it in the tank. It didn't pump water. So that meant we missed the water tube. So the water tube, you've got to get your fingers in there or a screwdriver in there, push it to the side, do all these weird kind of things, and hold your tongue the right way, standing on one foot. And it's got to be a Tuesday in order for this thing to line up. So I pull the gear case off, and I'm going to put it back on and go, oh, well, the water tube's over to the side a little bit. So what do? I reach with my finger and go like this. It pops out at the top again. So this time I had to take the power head back off. I had to take the exhaust snout off. I had to take the second exhaust snout off. I took crazy glue and I glued the water pipe in place. I cleaned all the gaskets off. I put it all back together. I put it back in the tank, and it works. But just a really, really bad design. So yeah, if I had to change or wanted to change something on an outboard, it would be that all water pipes must go straight up. Nothing weird and nothing silly. Mercury should have a Trump 47 motor. Hell of a marketing idea. Trump 47. Trump 47. Help me out. Explain it. Trump 47. What does it mean? Explain. Have I ever had a fix that I've worked on and didn't know why? That would be, I'll give you an example. Johnson and Evinrude, and I guess Mercury does it too. Sometimes if it's cold outside, we'll bring an engine in and we spin it over and we got no spark. So we check, let's say it's a 4-cylinder. So we check cylinder 1, cylinder 3, cylinder 2, and by the time we get to cylinder 4, we get spark. So we didn't do anything, but there's a component there that's not working properly, so we need to change that component, and it's usually the power pack. So it starts working out of the blue, but out of the blue is not a very good or reliable part to have, so we change those out. So that's something that, it out of the blue it starts working, and you can't explain it because it's something inside that's just not working properly. Well, I guess that's everything when it doesn't work, right? Yeah. Outside of repairs, how do I handle a video that flops? So as a YouTuber, we get videos that sometimes they don't do very well, and there's some that do really well. I was quite excited. On one of my shorts, I got 210,000 views, followed by a 50,000 and a 30,000. I thought I finally made it, guys. I thought finally YouTube is smiling at me. And then things went back to normal. 700, 1,400, 100, 150, 300, so on and so forth. All those numbers that I get. So how do I handle that? I just make another video. I do. I'll try and tweak the titles as best I can. I've tried different thumbnails. It's the title. And the fact that the people, if you don't get them within the first 2 or 3 seconds with a title, they just pass by. There's just no attention span anymore. Like I said, I've got videos on here that are 22 seconds long that don't have 100% viewing rate, right? How hard is it to sit there, watch a video for 22 seconds? Whether it's interesting or not, people will watch silly stuff. And, well, not that some of my stuff isn't silly, but, they'll watch stuff that's just brain dead for 30 seconds. I don't know. I just make another video and I keep plugging along. Let's see. You are upset about outboards being designed not easy to work on. Come over to the automotive world. You'll never leave the marine world again, I promise. Well, no, fair enough. I don't work on my own vehicles. I don't change my own oil. I've got a 2000 Corvette that I take to a place to get work on when it needs it, whether it's belts or whatever. I want it just to work. I don't like the automotive world. I've done brakes and things like that through the years. I took automotive stuff in high school, and the marine industry is just simpler. It's I don't have to stand upside down. Well, I guess the odd time I do, and I crawl into a stern drive, but I guess that's an automotive engine, isn't it? But yeah, the world of the small engine is just it's my world. I know a lot of the stuff crosses between the two, and I'm sure I'd be a success at the automotive world. But there's also a lot more competition in the automotive world too, right? Let's see. My experience of fixing outboards that there usually isn't one major problem. It's usually a combination of problems of maintenance that has been neglected. Yeah, there's that, but there are things that are out of hand or out of people's control, even if proper maintenance is done. We could add fuel conditioner to fuel in hopes that the carburetors don't get gummed up. We can drain our carburetors. We can leave the carburetors full. We can do all different avenues of maintenance that we can take, and it's inevitable something's still going to go wrong. I think what we need to do though is we need to be able to recognize symptoms and not treat just the symptoms, but the problems that are creating the symptoms. So you need to get to the root of the problem, because symptoms are just that, they're symptoms. And typically speaking, maintenance is part of symptoms. And I'll explain this. If we've got a water pump that say is down on pressure, for example, that's a symptom. But the symptom isn't the answer. It's the water pump that's the problem. But it could be the water pump. It could be a blown head gasket. It could be a blown exhaust gasket. It could be an obstruction. There's all of these different things. So even if, for example, that person was staying on top of their maintenance and they threw a new water pump into it every year, for example, let's say they were, that's just the way they do it. You can't prevent some things from happening. You just can't. A case in point, I tore apart a 85 horsepower Yamaha some years ago, or 90 horsepower Yamaha some years ago, and it was all full of scaling on the inside. I'm sure I've told the story a mazillion times, but that didn't matter any kind of maintenance that person would have done throughout the years, outside of maybe flushing the engine, but all of that stuff had just fallen down and plugged everything up. So yeah, I agree to a certain point. Maintenance is 100% important, but it's not going to stop some things from happening. It can't. Just type something in here. What's one symptom that always makes you double check your first guess? Compression. Yep. Compression. Compression is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing that you need in an internal combustion engine. If the compression isn't there, or the compression is low, it creates symptoms, or it just doesn't work. So, an example was it yesterday. I finally got a chance to work on a 20 horsepower Yamaha that's been sitting there because we've been busy doing winterizing. I just had to keep pushing it aside. So finally I get onto this Yamaha. Didn't even bother with a compression test. Something was telling me, get the scope out and take a look inside. So when I looked inside, it was all scored, rusty, and that other varnish color of orange. Engine was done. So I didn't even have to waste my time doing a compression test. Compression test would have shown 80 or 90 pounds, which would have led me to scope the engine. But I'm getting to the point now where I don't believe the compression gauge is telling the truth. Yeah. I'll get chastised for saying that, but I think that's true. I think it's true. I've got a video that I released a long time ago. It was your compression gauge is lying to you. So we could blow, say, 100, 110, but it's what you actually see on the cylinders that dictates how this engine is going to run. So we might still be able to get decent mid-range and full throttle out of these things, but it's a matter of getting there. We'll have the engine will bog, the engine won't idle, the engine will be hard to start, and these are all things that are caused by wear in the engine that the compression gauge isn't showing us. I know. The old salts are going, you don't know what you're talking about. Compression gauge is the the reason that we, etc., etc. Everyone goes by the compression gauge, but I'm telling you, if you guys got a scope, you'd be making people so much happier, because the guys up the block don't scope, they just fix. And you can't fix something internal on the outside. You can't. There's no point in spending $600, $700, $800 to do the guy's carburetors when the cylinders are telling you a completely different story. So I double check my compression gauge with a scope to make sure, just to be super sure. How do I decide when to replace versus repair? That's getting a little tougher. Years ago, we used to repair gear cases, so we would rebuild them, so put new gears into them, new bearings, so on and so forth, until it got to the point where it was getting overcomplicated for what you needed to do, right? You needed specialized tools, you were measuring by the thousands. I guess that was stuff that we did years ago too, but when you get to the point where you've got to get through 30 or 40 boats a week, it just doesn't make sense anymore to rebuild and repair. It's less expensive in most cases for us just to replace. So gear cases, we might buy them for $2,000 out of the States and put them on for $2,800 or whatever. Make a little bit of money on it. Get the guy back out on the water. He's back on the water way sooner than to order a bunch of parts and spend hours putting it together and trying to find or squeeze the time in, right? The time in to do those repairs. We just don't have time anymore. It's just gets too busy. It's when a person comes in, for example, and they want us to change an engine out. So if we've got to tie up two guys taking 10 hours in total, that 10 hours would have been a lot more profitable if it was 10 hours spent doing separate jobs than to do that one single job. And we're making one person happy when we could have been making 10 or 15 people happy in that amount of time. So I hate to say it, but we're to the point now where we replace more so than repair. Even carburetors, guys. We can buy a carburetor. Yes, it's a Chinese knockoff. It's the same thing. They're holding up just as well. I don't know about in saltwater usage. I don't know. Maybe the metal doesn't hold up as well. But up in our area, slapping those things on. I think I've even heard my brother talk about it sometimes, where it's just easier to buy a carburetor now and stick it on, and then you know it's going to be fixed. I worked on a Yamaha today, and I took a crack at the carburetor. I cleaned it all up, did everything I was supposed to, and the engine didn't want to idle. I finally had to take the anti-tamper plug out so that I could adjust it. In other words, the engine's worn to the point where it won't run on its own carburetor anymore. So even if I put a new one on that, it wouldn't have worked. But I guess I'm just saying that there are scenarios where you can still fix, and there's times where it doesn't pay to fix anymore. It just pays to replace. MacGyver fixes that actually held up. I don't really do that stuff. I want for that repair to be sound and to hold because our name is on the line. I think the only time that I've really MacGyvered anything, and then I actually, in the process of MacGyvering it, it was a tower piece that went between two carburetors, and it was plastic and it had broken, and I used, it held, and I do I still got it on my bench? I have it, or maybe I finally threw it out or stuck it somewhere else, but I had it for years. I was so proud of it. I glued it together, and then I took shrink tube and I put the shrink tube on it, 2 pieces, and melted it, and then melted another one over top. That was good as new. But that wasn't the answer. We eventually got the right thing in, and I replaced it. Ever had a customer swear the engine was just fine and it wasn't? Yeah, you get that. You almost wonder if it's a W5 moment, and I'll explain that, or it was W5 or 2020, where they'd send the reporter around or the person around, and they'd drop something off at your shop and tell you that it was okay, and you find things wrong with it when there wasn't stuff actually wrong with it, and they put you on those shows and, well, slander your name or whatever they do to make you look bad. So as paranoid as I am, stuff like that kind of sits in here, where if we suspect that there is something wrong, the customer definitely gets a call. We talk them through it. We explain why we looked where we did, just in case it's a sting. Yeah, a sting operation. I think that would be the term, wouldn't it? A sting? I don't know. But yeah, that's every once in a while you do get stuff that they come in and they say was fine, or it was working fine last year. Well, if stuff always worked fine last year, I wouldn't have a job. Do I trust digital gauges or analog more? You guys hear my dog barking. I don't have many digital gauges other than voltmeters. We do all of our compression tests with analog, so I don't really have a lot of use for different gauges outside of that. I guess when we were rebuilding gear cases, everything was analog as well. What's one technique you wish more DIYers knew? What do you guys think? If you could have a DIY technique or improve on one, what would that be? That's a tough question. I guess it would be understanding and being able to read wiring. I think that would help people a lot. Whether they're putting lights into their boats or horns or what have you, or being able to follow the information that's they're being shown on their engine with where the wires go and stuff. It's easy enough to find wiring diagrams on the internet. It's harder to read them though. It's like knowing another language. I think for DIYs, people, I think that would really help them is be able to understand it, because once you can understand how that works, you can start training your brain to figure out how the mechanical aspect of an engine works. You can follow those steps, I should say, and understand that the air gets drawn in, it goes through the Venturi speeds up the air, it then opens on the other side, which allows the air fuel mixture to atomize. It then gets pulled into the engine. You could learn and understand those steps, and once you get a grasp, or you've got that ability to think in that way, working on engines makes so much more sense and is so much easier. Another thing, I guess, would be able to the interpretation of data. So everyone says, well, you just hook it up to a computer and you know what's going on. No, that's far from the truth. It's far from the truth. When we're looking at computers or the data that we get on a computer, we have to interpret the data and understand what the data is telling us. It's not that it just a thing flashes on the screen and says you need to change this. If you've got something that's out of spec, it can throw other things out of spec, and you need to know the data in order to fix what you're doing. For example, if we've got an IAC on an engine, a 40, 50, or 60, they need to run around 30%, and the only way to verify that is with the computer. If you're really lucky, you can set it properly and the engine will run, but you're lucky, right? So you hook it up to the computer, you look at it, you see 46%, you adjust it, and then everything else starts to fall in line and the engine starts to run properly. It's interpreting the data. So how to read wires or wiring diagrams and how to interpret data would be some very important things for the DIY guy. Excuse me. If my multimeter could talk, what would we complain about? Shut me off. I'm thankful that every once in a while I hear a beep and it shuts off, or I would have dead batteries every day. Every day. What else? Another thing that we kind of goof up every once in a while is leaving the key on in a boat, because we'll hook it up to the computer, finish up with the computer, put the computer away, and forget to turn the key off, and well, battery goes on the charger. How do I decide what videos to put up? So basically, it's whether or not it's stream worthy or not. I think everything has some relevance. I know that some of the stuff, like the rants and stuff that I do, well, probably shouldn't be on the internet, but it's something for people to watch. I find that my rant stuff does quite a bit better than my other stuff does, so I like to do those, and it's a good out for me so that I can get some frustration released. There are times when I do other videos that are just, to show people how to do stuff. And some of those are going to be coming up. Like I mentioned before, I do have a 90 and a 115 that I bought off Facebook Marketplace that I'm going to be taking a look at. I don't know if it's going to be one of those videos that's as extravagant as the big YouTubers do, where, they show how much it's going to cost. Maybe I'll try and do something like that. But that's a lot of effort, guys, and I'll be honest, it's a lot of effort to put in that may or may not work. And I say this because we put up a banger set of videos that I thought were going to do really well, and they didn't. And it was the videos where we saved Father's Day for two kids, so that they actually had their dad's boat to go out and enjoy for the weekend. And we made a whole series of videos about it, and it was all kind of like the real life stories and things like that. Like those what's the term for that? I can't remember. Anyway, it was great. I liked doing it. We had fun doing it, but it was a lot of work. It was a lot of editing. It was a lot of camera work. It was just a lot of work for minimal views. I get more views just doing this kind of stuff or the regular walkarounds that I do, because I know that a lot of people just listen to my videos rather than watch them, which is fine. It's fine. I know that when I do my videos where I show how to do stuff, the videos aren't high at the start, but those are videos that will culminate over time and grow as people search how to do things. So there's always the residuals off those. And what do we get for time here? How long have I been doing this, guys? Do I have a timer somewhere? I must have a timer somewhere. I'm not seeing one. But I've probably burnt up enough of your guys' time, and my wife probably wants me to go sit and watch TV or some hour and 18 minutes, it says. And it looks like chat has slowed down anyway, so I guess what I'll do is, guys, I'm going to get going. I'll probably be here next Friday, and we can chat some more. I appreciate everyone that came and watched, and people that dropped in and stayed for a while and contributed to chat. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the backyard at the shop. How does that sound? Laters.